Let's unpack my decode diagram by the name of Logan's dream, which is a dream that I received from one of my followers by the name of Logan. This young lady sent me a message in regards to a dream she had about the moon and a spaceship and wanted my interpretation of it. However, I found that it was a much deeper message embedded in this and wanted to take my time to see what I could decode from her dream. And before I proceed, this is strictly for entertainment purposes only. Now, I do have a more detailed version of this dream breakdown that names people, places, and things. That's a little bit too sensitive for this platform. However, it is available in the link in my bio on the tube that is you. And be sure to subscribe as well when you get over there, okay? I am a master dream decoder. And what I like to teach about dream decoding is that our dreams are numerical sequences because everything is frequency and light on a quantum level. And when you're dreaming and awake, you are experiencing mathematics and numbers. And the gematria and the numerical values of your dreams can tell you the future or can predict different events if you understand how to unpack them numerically and understand that your dreams are injections and projections. Your dreams act as the immune system for your brain. When you are experiencing an overload of emotions and your brain needs to regulate you, you typically have dreams that form parables to show you where the problem is so you can solve that emotional issue in the waking dream. So our dreams are projection as well as injection spaces. Sometimes we are projecting things to fix our own personal chemical imbalances within the brain, and sometimes our dreams are injections of things that are happening on a larger scale within the quantum reality of connection, okay? And it may be a prophetic dream that produces a future outcome. And understanding how to interpret these dreams is where I come in. If you were to take every part of your dream, as she mentioned, there was a spaceship that was silver. There were red and blue lines on the spaceship. There was a black hole. It came out of the moon. All of these different little reference points has A, their own numbers, and B, their own significant meanings if you dig a little bit deeper. So let's unpack this diagram piece by piece to determine how I came to the point of understanding that this was about the twin flame black swan event. Here's what Logan stated happened in her dream. She said, I had this dream where the moon opened up. The opening was just big enough to make a black hole in the moon, and a spaceship, as I perceived, came out of it. The front of the spaceship had a very pointed edge. During doing more research, I think that it was a layer. After the event, everything was in fear, of course, and people began to lose their minds. I am wondering if you know anything about this. It seemed that I may have been in another dimension. I was frantic, confused. I think there was a laser beam. The spaceship was silver with very thin blue and red lining. I'm not sure of the time frame, but it felt like the future. I remember there was a big need for medication after this event happened, and a lot of people were looking for some type of medication. The first thing that stands out to me is the fact that this is happening through the moon. And as I explained on this channel, the moon is a machine, and it's basically a projector that distributes the times, the seasons, the days, the months, the years, okay? And it projects our light bodies as well and outlines everything within the realm like a game build. So with that being said, I knew that this dream was in reference to time. So I began to look at the factors within the dream that were a reference to time and the moon, okay, based on the information that was provided. We know that there was a black hole, and a black hole is a representation of the singularity, which is a 0 point moment or a moment that changes everything. And as I have been teaching on this channel, the black sun event is a black hole event that basically is the collapse of the sun into a reset mode singularity event. This was one of the key indicators that made me realize that this dream was connected to everything I have been unpacking on this page. As I stated before, we're headed towards a reset where the two witnesses are going to give birth to the man-child that's going to reset the sun. And when you say things like black hole, that's what triggers in my mind because that's what I've been talking about this entire time. So that in and of itself is a reference to whatever time frame this is supposed to be. She said there was a silver spaceship. So that jumped out to me because I'm very much into cross-referencing the chemical compounds and their atomic information in order to make sure that I can gain the numerology and the info on these particular items in the dream because, again, these are projections that are showing you very specific things in parable form that usually translate to numerical values that give you a much larger span or view as to what you're looking at. The atomic name and number for silver is AG47. And 47 jumps out to me because, of course, that's very relevant in this particular time frame. You have the 47th in the White House right now. But also, the year that I was born, 74 volcanoes erupted. Okay, so this stood out to me. And AG, which equals 1 and 7, because A equals 1 and G is the seventh letter. 17 equals 8, and 8 is a representation of the time loop. So again, we're back to the black hole, the black singularity, the black sun event, the reset, and basically the end of time, or the time loop being slipped by the slip knot of the side energy, or the 7, which is both present here. So seeing the numbers 4 and 7 made me think about the Olympian spirits, since we're talking specifically about time. So I looked to see what the 4th and the 7th day of the week governs in the 196 squares of light, or grid of light. And the 4th day is actually Wednesday, which governs Mercury and Gemini, as well as Virgo. And Gemini and Virgo, as I have explained, are the twin flame energies, or the main arcs of the two witnesses, okay? And they govern 100,000 legions of spirits and rules over 14 provinces. This is the 4th day of the week. And it also rules over Quicksilver, which ties back to the silver spaceship. So that doubly confirms that for me there. And Mercury, okay, which is extremely important, which we'll get to. And then the 7th day of the week is Saturday, which governs Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius. So then I went to look and see where in the systematic of the 9 planets that we have, where Mercury and Saturn fall into place. Mercury is the first planet and Saturn is the 6th planet. So now I have a framework to work with 1 and 6 as my main numbers out of the 47. Okay, so knowing this now, I went ahead and cross-referenced those 2 numbers with Enoch's gates, or intercalary days, because what stood out to me is the fact that there are 4 intercalary gates that are described in the book of Enoch, which I recently just got through decoding. I went through the process of just recently decoding these intercalary gates and kind of realigning Earth's astrological system according to my own knowledge and decoding. And the 1, 3, 4, 6 intercalary gates by Enoch, I found that the first gate is basically associated with December, or the 10th month, which Dec, or Decadon, means 10th, okay? And also I connected it to plutonium, which is PU 94. PU equals 73, and 94 equals 13, which equals 4. So here we have the numbers 7, 3, and 4 to work with. And we also have plutonium, which is the 9th planet, is supposed to be the furthest away from the sun, the coldest planet, as well as in astrology, Pluto is a representation of America's Pluto return. Plutonium was also used in Back to the Future for the flux capacitor, okay? That's just a little interesting tidbit in case you didn't know. However, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the numbers 7, 3, and 4, which breaks down to 1 and 4 and also 5, okay? And then I looked at Saturn, which is the 6th planet, and with Enoch's intercalary gate, this is November, which represents the 9th month, and I associated that with Neptune and Neptunium, which is another element, and Neptunium is NP93, NP equals 57, and 93 equals 12 equals 3. Saturn is also represented with Saturday as well as Sabbath, which is about rest, or the Sabbath rest of 1,000 years. So of course I take all of these numbers and I add them all together, because that's just something that I like to do to see where they end up. And they all equal the number 47, of course. AG 47, that's a doubling down on the fact that we've already confirmed that silver is 47. And 4 plus 7 equals 11, which is a big formula in the twin flame math. It represents the polarity, the two witnesses, the gates of truth and justice, which are the gates of Shamash when we come to the reset. So doing that brought me the numbers, which I look here at the bottom, and you have the numbers 3, 7, 5. By taking the twin flames, or the two witnesses' birth dates, okay, and don't ask me how I know that, but I do, and adding them together, the actual birth dates equal 3, 7, 5. The 5 being 32. So now, having the numbers 375, I wanted to see if it related to anything in the world, and lo and behold, there's a bill called the Ohio House Bill, which is about land ownership. So of course this stands out to me as something that's linking to land ownership or inheritance, basically. So if we're talking about the two witnesses, the two most powerful beings in the realm, we're talking about the original inheritors or heirs of earth realm. Okay, so 375 is connected to that. It's also in Ohio, which I broke down the numbers to Ohio, and it's actually equaling 11 as well. And then also 375 is connected to Belarus, which means white rust or root of Russia. And I have decoded before that the word Russia is an anagram for Assyrians or Assyrians, which are the Asars of Osiris. Sirius is where the original Sumerians are from. This is about the Summerland, Summer being Sumerians, okay? And they are from Sirius A B, the dog star. So, of course, I received a channeled message from one of my highest spirit guides talking about the space-time continuum while I'm doing all this research. And I looked at that diagram long and hard, and I'm like, it reminds me of a lot of the things that I've already been doing. However, the shape and the way that this wormhole is connected made me think about the fact that, hey, maybe this is explaining how these two polarities or twin flames come into connection with each other. And that made me think about the numbers 375, and it clicked. And I'm like, okay, this is the mathematics for this meeting. The number 3 is a representation of the triangle shape that is here. And you have a triangle that represents each person in 3 parts. The number 3 is also representative of the death and rebirth of Christ, or the Christ beings, which the 2 witnesses are Christ beings. And the number 3 is a representation of death and resurrection. It's death to ego. It's a rest period of learning and gaining knowledge and ministry, and then a resurrection, which is the Christ oil of anointing. Okay, so this number 3 is a representation of a triangle, but it's also a representation of these 2 Christ beings coming into contact with each other. The number 7 is half of the triangle. So think of it like you're living a life, and then you come to a point where you meet your twin flame at the middle, which is the number 7. These 2 triangles are a representation of the number 7 themselves. If you put 2 triangles together, you have 2 sevens, one inverted and one upright. So when you're looking at the number 7, you should be thinking about time, which is the 2 triangles, or an 8 loop, right? Which we already decoded with the AG47. However, the number 7 is the slip knot, or the side that's going to end time, basically. So here you have the number 7, which is a representation of the twin flames meeting point, where they meet, where they have the man-child, and they use that energy to cause the reset that is going to slip or end time. The number 5 is a representation of the magnetism of these twin flames. And the biggest bioelectric field is the heart, which is going to be an apocalypse of the heart, or love. These 2 beings coming together and connecting, which has never been done before, is going to cause a great event because of the energy they possess as 2 polar magnet opposites, but perfect connections, being the exact same photon light beam split into 2 bodies. So when you talk about the lattice of magnetite, you're talking about 32 oxygen atoms and 24 iron atoms, which is very interesting because in the book of Revelations, you talk about the man-child that is born with a rod of iron, okay? So we're talking about magnetism of these 2 polar opposite beings coming together that's going to create this black swan event within the earth realm. 375 also equals 15, which equals 6. And 15 is also 6 and 9, which is yin and yang polarity. By yourself, you are just a woman or a man, and a woman without Christ consciousness is a representation of the number 4. In order for her to be a 6 or a divine feminine, she needs to add 2, which is death and rebirth, to herself, so she can become a Christ. Then she becomes a 6, and him adding 2 to his number, he becomes a 9, or a yang energy. So when you talk about 6 and 9, you're talking about these 2 divine feminine and masculine energies coming together to birth the man-child. These 2 beings themselves are a representation of the north and south node magnets, being the first incarnates into earth realm, and the original God himself, herself energy that's been here the entire time, incarnating through the moon machine like everyone else. So think about the fact that the earth realm, or the sphere, is held apart by 2 polar opposite magnets. What would happen if those 2 magnets started to compress or smush? Of course, everything's going to get smushed in the middle that exists, but it's also going to cause this thing called flux density because it's a magnetic resonance, right? And that vortex that's created in the middle is going to begin to compress, making time speed up, which is happening. And a lot of people are saying time is speeding up, but it can also cause dizziness, nausea, vomiting, sickness, okay? Which explains why within her dream, she said people felt sick, and needed medication. It's going to be a convergence of these two energies. Calculating the actual flame math from the two witnesses, I was able to find a meet point or a midpoint, which leads me to Christmas. Okay. And it makes sense that Christmas is the day because you're talking about the 10th month, because that means 10 or December. And the 25th is actually 10/7. Okay. And that's 1/7, which leads me right back to our AG and the loop. Okay. I believe that this particular holiday is supposed to be centered around love and not necessarily a triangular tree with presents underneath in a different form of love, more so the Eros form of love, which is between the masculine and feminine principle. If you look at Valentine's Day, which is posed as the day of love, it's on February 14th. But if you do the reduction, February is actually the 12th month. So again, you have the 3 and the 5, which is the 8 as well. However, it is in the dead of winter that you're working love as a ritual. So in essence, now love is cold versus it being in the fall where you fall in love. Love is represented as the heart chakra or the green energy. So it could be a green tree or it could be the Grinch that stole Christmas. Okay. Maybe this is somehow connected to 3-Eye Atlas, which is glowing green. Okay. And this is all just speculation. I'm not saying that this is necessarily true. However, in breaking down the meaning of 3-Eye Atlas, it gave me the numbers 375. And again, this seems more like a interplanetary event that is aligning itself across all spanses. Okay. So that is how I got this. And I believe that once this magnetism shifts or these poles flip or shift and the magnetism is realigned, it's going to cause people to feel sick because they're going to be thrown out of the improper timeline or alignment. When you think about magnets, you think about two energies collapsing together, and that's because they are naturally magnetic. So think about all the people who are aligned and are not magnetically connected. Okay. So you're talking about the symptoms of that, them not being properly aligned or on the right timeline. And then when this energy collapses, everyone else who are the polar magnet opposites or the true flames will begin to align and click as well. So there'll be a bunch of disentanglements, okay, of false flame or false love during this time. Once the two main energies or the twin flame energies come together for the Black Swan event, as I have predicted is, according to this dream, December 26th, 2025. So the very sharp, pointy layer that she said was on the spaceship makes me think that this is going to be a tip of the spear moment or a tipping point moment or a very sharp moment that changes everything, right? And the fact that it was coming out of the moon means that it's going to be a moment that changes everything or a very sharp, life-changing instance. And then there was also red and blue lining on the ship, and red and blue could represent the red and blue Kachina, as I have been decoding on this page, which is a representation of the reset, which is the X-class solar flare of the sun, and the cooling of the sun, which turns it to a new blue sun. Okay. It could also be representing America, red, white, and blue, or the root and throat chakra, which is the Holy Spirit or the speaking or the breath or the pneuma, and the root, which is anxiety, fear, lust, love, etc. I hope you enjoyed this message, and thanks and shout out to Logan for entrusting me with this dream. It has truly been a gift that has opened up so many other doors and interpretations of my previous work, and it just clicked into place. And it makes so much sense that she is a Pisces because, of course, the fish is attached to the Virgo symbol, and I am a Virgo. So this is like the last piece in my puzzle that I was looking for. I truly appreciate your gift, and I hope everyone enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe, and put a comment down in the comments just to let me know what you think of this content overall. Keep shining bright. Peace, love, and light.